is up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about how Netflix ruined one of the best books I've ever read in their rendition, remake, what do you call it? Interpretation? Adaptation. There we go. With their adaptation of the book All the Bright Places. This book was released in 2015 and it's written by Jennifer Niven. So to start, I want to tell you a little bit about All the Bright Places, the book. This is actually one of my favorite books of all time, ever. I've never loved a book as much as I've loved All the Bright Places. It has been the book that I recommend to people. Every time they ask me, what should I read? I say All the Bright Places, hands down. The book is about a girl named Violet and a boy named Theodore Finch, and they are both suicidal. Violet because her sister died in a car accident that she was also in. She came out fine, her sister passed away. And Finch because he has a lot of undiagnosed mental illness problems. Finch has an undiagnosed mental illness. They meet on top of the bell tower at their school where they're both contemplating jumping off of it, and the two become unlikely friends and then an unlikely couple. I'm not gonna get into any parts of this book that are spoilery until like more the end of this video. So if you haven't read the book or seen the movie, I recommend not watching the movie and I recommend only reading the book because I'm sure you have a lot of time on your hands considering what we're going through right now. Anyway, this book is fucking heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking and devastating, and you feel upset and you feel angry and you just wonder why did this have to happen? Why did it have to end this way? The ending of the book is so devastating because of the way that Niven built it up with all these little details, all these different scenes, all these different quirks that the characters had. That's what made the ending so heartbreaking, and the movie completely missed that. The movie said, you know what, I don't really care about these details that will make this book or this movie a lot better. Nah. The movie is so disappointing. I honestly didn't even watch the whole thing. I just kind of skimmed through it to see what parts they included because there are some amazing parts of this book that were not included in the movie. And I understand, you know, that book's 300 pages. I understand that you can't include everything in the movies, but when it's pieces of the book that A, means so much to the people who have read the book and have loved the book, and B, makes such a difference in how you feel about the book / movie ending that the way that it did, it's kind of disappointing. The thing about All the Bright Places is, yeah, it's a YA novel, but it was a YA novel with such a punch to the gut that it feels like something that should have been made movie-wise for both adults and teenagers, but it kind of felt like it was, I mean, not kind of felt like, it was shot like your basic run-of-the-mill teenage romance movie turned sad in a plot twist kind of thing. It was filmed the way that a YA movie is filmed, and that's fine in some cases. Like, I think the way that Netflix did to All the Boys I Loved Before, sure, it's cheesy, but that's the book. The book is pretty cheesy. To All the Boys I Loved Before is your typical pretty cheesy YA novel, but All the Bright Places packed such a huge punch in that book that it wasn't meant to be a cheesy teenage movie, if that makes sense.
I sound like such a bitch, but whatever, I really don't care. I'm so passionate about this book. I will fight for this book till the day I die.
The actors didn't do it for me. I do not like who they cast for Finch. They just were so cheesy. They both were so cheesy. Like, I was picturing Finch, and I know Logan Lerman can't play every sad, depressed, like, person in a teenage movie. I know he can't, but he should be able to, because Logan Lerman is exactly, like, that type of person is exactly who I imagined for Finch. My other qualm with the movie All the Bright Places is the way they changed the characters. Not only did they change Finch's appearance and how he looked, but they also changed his personality. From the beginning in the book, Finch is obsessed with death, and it's made very clear. He's very open in the book about being suicidal and just being someone that goes into these dark places. When he's manic, he's awake. It's the awake. He's up, he's going, he can't sleep, he's staying up all night, he's running miles and miles, he's driving, he's doing all these things, writing music, he's changing how he looks. That's the other thing they didn't do. Finch in the movies, or in the books, he is like always changing how he looks. Like sometimes he's like a punk rocker. They didn't do that in the movie, at least from what I saw when I skimmed through a few scenes and tried to watch it. Violet is not as passionate about writing as she was in the books, which is very disappointing. Kids these days don't read books anymore, they're just obsessed with their tablets. In the book, Violet was very passionate about writing and she got into NYU. In the movie, it's not like a relevant thing at all, and that was one of the biggest things in the book, is that Violet was a writer. There are multiple articles quoting Jennifer Niven and the guy who directed the movie and like the other screenwriter, I think, talking about why they didn't make Finch as suicidal and obsessed with death in the movie. And they just wanted to make sure they didn't romanticize suicide and mental illness like they did in 13 Reasons Why. Just because you fucked up and included very graphic scenes of a girl killing herself in a bathtub and a guy getting raped with a broom doesn't mean that you should change the entire impact of a book to movie adaptation. If you don't feel like you should be romanticizing suicide, don't buy the script. Don't buy the rights to this book. Leave it to someone else. Let someone else create a masterpiece out of this book, because this book could have been made into one of the best movies of the year. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. If they had taken more of a Perks of Being a Wallflower, and I know I keep referencing that book and movie, but that movie was just so good and impactful. If they had taken that kind of approach, not only in being raw and gritty and not being afraid to push those boundaries and talk about mental illness and talk about all these things, but also just the way it was shot and created. Like I said before, it felt like your typical young adult romantic movie. But the book is not that at all. The book packs a punch, and the movie had so much potential to be so impactful and so meaningful for so many people, but they didn't go that route because they fucked up by making 13 Reasons Why what it is.
13 Reasons Why is a hot mess.
Another thing that I'd like to add that feels really important is that Jennifer Niven is someone who had a great-grandfather who killed himself, and then a boy she loved and knew killed himself, and she was the one who discovered his body. I feel like Jennifer Niven has very, very valid thoughts and points about people who are suicidal and about what the impact of suicide is. The fact that in the movie they changed up Finch's character to be less suicidal is very disappointing, because Jennifer Niven, I feel like, is someone who has such a great perspective on people who are suicidal. Being with someone and loving someone that ends up killing themselves and then you finding them gives you a little bit of credibility when it comes to the topic. It's disappointing that we weren't able to see more of Finch's dark thought. A lot of people can relate to Theodore Finch, and it's good to have someone like him representing an unrepresented voice. If you haven't seen the movie or read the book and you don't want to be spoiled, then don't watch this part, but I'm gonna talk a bit about the book and how everything ends in the book and spoil it. So you have 10 seconds to watch this clip of Pearl being really fucking cute. So One of the scenes in the book that I feel like was really important to building the characters and the relationship between Violet and Finch, and kind of just showing how mentally ill and unstable Finch was, is the scene in the book. It happens on page 260 and on, and Finch is awake, he's very manic, he's just doing all sorts of things, doesn't really know what to do with himself, and he starts to drive around in his car, and then he stops, feels like he's going to get sick from a cigarette, and then just starts running. The scene goes as follows. I bend over, hands on my knees. I wait. When I don't get sick, I look at the road stretched out ahead and start to run. I run like hell, leaving the little bastard behind. I run so hard and fast, I feel like my lungs will explode, and then I go harder and faster. I'm daring my lungs and my legs to give out on me. I can't remember if I locked the car, and God, I hate my mind when it does that, because now I can only think about the car door and that lock, and so I run harder. I don't remember where my jacket is, or if I even had one. I will be alright, I will be alright. I won't fall apart, I will be alright. I will be okay. I'm okay. Okay? Okay. Suddenly, I'm surrounded by farms again. At some point, I pass a series of commercial greenhouses and nurseries. They won't be open on Sunday, but I run up the drive to one that looks like a real mom-and-pop organization. A 2-story white farmhouse sits on the back of the property. The driveway is crowded with trucks and cars, and I can hear the laughter from inside. I wonder what would happen if I just walked in and sat down and made myself at home. I go up to the front door and knock. I am breathing hard, and I should have waited to knock so I can catch my breath, but no. I think I'm in too much of a hurry. I knock again, louder this time. A woman with white hair and the soft round face of a dumpling answers, still laughing from the conversation she left. She squints at me through the screen and then opens it because we're in the country and this is Indiana and there is nothing to fear from our neighbors. It's one of the things I like about living here, and I want to hug her for the warm but confused smile she wears as she tries to figure out if she's seen me before. Hello there, I say. Hello, she says. I can imagine what I must look like, red face, no coat, sweating and panting, gasping for air. I compose myself as fast as I can. I'm sorry to disturb you, but I'm on my way home and I just happened to pass your nursery. I know you're closed and you have company, but I wonder if I could pick out a few flowers for my girlfriend. It's kind of an emergency. Her face wrinkles with concern. An emergency? Oh dear. Maybe that's a strong word, and I'm sorry to alarm you, but winter is here and I don't know where I'll be by spring. And she's named for a flower and her father hates me and I want her to know that I'm thinking of her and that it isn't a season of death, but one for living. I'm talking a mile a minute, thanking him and telling him I'll pay him double, and even offering to send him a picture of Violet with the flowers. Maybe violets, once I give them to her. He lays a hand on my shoulder. You don't worry about it, son. I want you to take what you need. Inside, I breathe the sweet, living scent of flowers. I want to stay in here where it's warm and bright, surrounded by things that are living and not dead. I want to move in this good-hearted couple and have them call me son, and Violet can live here too because there's enough room for both of us. He helps me choose the brightest blooms, not just violets, but daisies and roses and lilies and others I can't remember the names of. Then he and his wife, whose name is Margaret Ann, wrap them in a refrigerated shipping bucket, which will keep my flowers hydrated. I try to pay them, but they wave my money away, and I promise to bring the bucket back as soon as I can. By the time we're done, their guests have gathered outside to see the boy who must have flowers to give to the girl he loves. And then the part where he gives her the flowers, and she says, "No more winter at all. Finch, you brought me spring." That is one of those scenes that could have been made into a beautiful cinematic masterpiece. Not only with the way that it could have been shot, with beautiful landscapes, colorful flowers in the nursery, a sweet old couple. Who doesn't love that? Who doesn't love a sweet old couple in a movie? It could have been this beautiful, artsy, well shot, dim lit, kind of grainy, kind of raw film. Last but not least, I want to talk about the end of this book and movie. At the end of the book and movie, Theodore Finch ends up killing himself. In the movie, they don't really make his mental illness as much of a reason that he killed himself. It's still a prevalent reason, but it's not the focal point that Finch has been struggling for a very long time and he finally went through with it. It was more, there was a series of unfortunate events that happened and then it really led him to spiral. In the book, it's not like that. In the book, you see and read about his experiences and what's going on in his head and how hard it is for him to be a normal teenager and to just do normal teenage things because his mind is either going a million miles a minute or it's not going at all and he can barely keep himself awake and outside of his closet. They didn't really include as much of like the scavenger hunt to find Finch, which honestly I'm not that upset about. If you're gonna make this the movie and you want to make sure that you're making a movie that touches and focuses on mental illness and possibly being suicidal, you don't want to add elements to it that could make it seem like it's being romanticized. Not including the mystery and the clues that Finch left for Violet to find out where he ultimately ended up killing himself. I think that was a smart move for the movie, because that is definitely something that can be seen as romanticizing. What was disappointing to me was how Violet discovered where Finch had died in the movie. Was just, it was done all right, but it wasn't as sad as it was in the books, at least not for me. Violet gets to the body of water that she and Finch had swam in. She goes there, and in the book she finds his clothes folded neatly, and she says in the book it's like the greatest hits of his closet, all stacked and folded nicely. She has his leather jacket, a pair of his jeans, a shirt, all folded nicely, and she dives into the water and is screaming, "Marco, Marco," diving down, trying to find him. It's very dramatic in the book and very sad. It's so sad because this girl is just desperately looking for the boy that she loves somewhere deep in the water, and she's thinking to herself, no one can hold their breath for that long. Maybe Finch can, maybe it'll be okay, but it's not. And I understand that that is something that is difficult to display in a movie, because reading about the emotions and the thoughts in the book, it's easier to portray those in a book than it is a movie. But they didn't even have his clothes folded in the movie. They didn't have the clothes that they described in the book laying there. She didn't dive in the water. She just stood on the rock screaming, "Marco." Obviously, I understand why they didn't want to show them pulling out his dead body. I think something they could have done to make the scene sadder in the movie is not show the body itself, but show Violet's face when they pull a body out of the water, and kind of let her react, and just see how the actress who plays Violet can make those emotions appear on her face, the shock, the grief, the denial. Because in the book she denies. When she sees Finch's body, she says, "No, that is not Theodore Finch. That is a bloated blue creature that I do not know, I cannot identify, because that is not Finch. People like Theodore Finch do not die." But they didn't do that. I think the most disappointing thing, actually, that they left out of this movie was the song that Finch wrote Violet, that she finds in the church. After he dies, Finch still kind of leaves Violet like a little bit of a scavenger hunt. The last place that Violet goes to is a church. They actually included this part. They included this word for word. The Taylor Prayer Chapel was created as a sanctuary for weary travelers to stop and rest along their way. It was built in memoriam to those who have lost their lives in auto accidents, and as a place of healing. We remember those who are no longer here, who were taken from us too soon, and who will always keep with us in our heart. This chapel is open to the public day and night, and on the holidays. We are always here. And then after she arrives at this church, she doesn't just find it and kind of think like, oh, Finch chose this for me. In the book, in the movie, she just finds it and reads that and is like, oh, that's nice. In the book, Finch leaves her a note. This is the part of the book that made me cry the hardest, and it goes like this. "You make me happy. Whenever you're around, I'm safe inside your smile. You make me handsome. Whenever I feel my nose just seems a bit too round. You make me special, and God knows I've longed to be that kind of guy to have around. You make me love you, and that could be the greatest thing my heart was ever fit to do. You make me lovely, and it's so lovely to be lovely to the one I love. You make me happy, you make me special, you make me lovely." The fact that they left that part out is so upsetting, because that was a moment in the book that really summed up their relationship and summed up how much Violet meant to Finch. So I'm watching this back and I realize that I think one of the biggest points I missed when talking about all of this is that Finch is seen in the books as more of a character who is just so hopelessly in love with Violet. And I think that's one of the most heartbreaking aspects about this book, is that Finch is just a boy who is so in love with this girl and would do anything for her, but he just was so not in love with being alive. And
there was a battle in his head, and you could tell it was a battle in his head. And that was one of the most devastating things, is that he lost that battle. And if he had won that battle, he would be able to be with the girl he loves and maybe be happy. So I think the biggest thing that this story misses is the aspect of there always being hope again, and there always being a brighter end in the tunnel. I'm really sad that I didn't say that in a more professional setting, and instead you have to see me while I'm on the beach in Hawaii. But yeah. Bye.
And Violet realizes how much he meant to her, or she meant to him. It's just really disappointing that of all the things, they couldn't just keep that last little part in. Instead they recreate it, I guess, with like this Violet reading this piece of writing at the end in the classroom about how Finch helped her discover and like move on. And I don't know, that like was cute, but like it wasn't as impactful to me as that letter was. Two other quotes that they left out that I thought were pretty impactful was one that kind of sums up Finch, and it's not by anyone in the book particularly, it's by the writer Natalia Ginsburg. It seemed to us that his sadness was that of a boy, the voluptuous, heedless melancholy of a boy who has still not come down to earth and moves in this arid, solitary world of dreams. It was an epitaph that could have been written for Finch, except that I've written one for him myself. Theodore Finch. I was alive. I burned brightly, and then I died. But not really. Because someone like me cannot, will not, die like everyone else. I lingered like the legends of the blue hole. I will always be here, in the offerings and people I left behind. And she's like treading in the water of the blue hole during this part while she's thinking about that stuff. And they could have made that so beautiful, and they didn't. Ultimately, it really doesn't matter how the movie was adapted. You can still read this freaking awesome book, and I strongly recommend that you read All the Bright Places. It is an amazing, amazing book. That's it. Thank you guys for listening to this rant. If anyone actually watches this video, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the movie, if you watched it. If you read the books, let me know. I would also love some recommendations of books that are like All the Bright Places, because I have a little bit of time on my hands right now. So yeah, let me know some book recommendations. Let me know what you think of all this, if you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm right. Either way is cool. Everyone has their own opinions. These are just mine. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!